Recording in progress.
Okay, welcome everyone. We finished our little mini series on the Brahma Viharas. I'm not too sure yet. Aya Himsa's coming back Thursday. So we'll discuss what the next series will be. But anyway, about once a month or so, she and I are going to talk about one of the Buddhist women that the photographs are in the stairwell as you're coming up. So she did Ayakema about a month ago. And tonight I'm going to tell you about Dipa Ma. Whoops, is it on there? It's a bit too much reflection from the glass. It's a bit confusing, but she's has her hands on somebody who's their head that's bowing in front of her and giving them blessings. So you can pass this around. I'll show you, I'll screen share a picture that won't be so difficult to see. So this is her. Here's another photo of her. So Dipa Ma, she's a lay woman. She's not a monastic, but highly attained. She was born with the name Nani Barua in 1911 in India. So putting that in context for my life, that was 2 years after my father was born. So about my parents' age. She died at the age of 78 in 1989. So I got introduced to Buddhism in 1991, so I just missed out having the possibility of a contact with her. As a child, she observed Dipa Ma. She observed her parents being very generous, offering food not only to Buddhist monks but also to religious seekers in other traditions. She was deeply interested in Buddhism but had no chance to study it. She was also interested in general education and wanted to attend school, but shocking to us, she was married off at the age of 12 to a 25-year-old engineer called Rajani. And he had a job in Burma, so they moved from India to Burma. Thankfully, he was a very kind and supportive husband. Now, it was certainly expected that women would bear a child within a year of marriage, preferably a male child, but she was unable to conceive. Her husband's parents were encouraging him to, I guess, dump her, like divorce her and get another wife. But he was just very kind and refused to divorce her, and he just told her to regard every person she met as her child. So it was just very caring and understanding. So she and her husband, they followed the 5 precepts. They offered food to monks. They paid schooling for poor children and even offered a place in their home for some homeless people. So they were, very kind. And she studied Buddhist texts whenever she could find them. When she was 18 years old, her mother died and left behind an 18-month-old son, Bijoy. And I have a picture of them when he's a little bit older. So, So there's Dipa Ma, her husband, and then here's her mother's, like her brother basically, that they took in and to raise from when he was 18 months old. Now, right after the death of her mother, Dipa Ma developed typhoid fever, and this was misdiagnosed, and she spent several months in hospital. Then zooming ahead to when she was 30, Burma was attacked and occupied by the Japanese from 1941 to 45. So her brother, Bijoy, was now grown, and he returned to India. Finally, at age 35, Dipa Ma became pregnant and bore a daughter who sadly died at 3 months old. She was filled with grief and developed a heart condition. At 39, she became pregnant again and bore Dipa. So this is why she's called Dipa Ma, because I guess Ma means mother, so mother of Dipa. So she had a child that lived. Dipa means light, so Dipa Ma means mother of light. I have some pictures of, but not as a child, but there's Dipa Ma and then her daughter Dipa, grown up. So soon after bearing Dipa, she actually became pregnant again, but it was a son, but he died at birth. So again, she was she was filled with grief. She asked her husband permission to learn meditation as a way to cope with her grief, but he said she was too young. I guess you're supposed to be sort of a retirement age when you start doing things like meditating. So she had this pre-existing heart condition. She now developed hypertension, was actually bedridden for several years. So her husband nursed her, raised Dipa, and worked full time. And then he ended up dying of a heart attack in 1957 when the daughter Dipa was 7 years old. So again, Dipa Ma went into had a huge grief reaction. She was in very poor health, but she desperately wanted to learn meditation to help herself cope with her physical condition. Apparently she had a dream where the Buddha appeared and chanted a verse to her from the Dhammapada, and the translation is, clinging to what is dear brings sorrow. Clinging to what is dear brings fear. To one who is entirely free from endearment, there is no sorrow or fear. So given her health condition, she thought that she was going to die pretty soon. And no longer being restrained by her husband from learning to meditate, she decided to leave her lay life and her daughter and move to the Kamayat Meditation Center in Rangoon. And the teacher there was Mahasi Sayadaw. Some of you may have heard, he was a very famous Burmese teacher. So she gave all her possessions to a neighbor and asked the neighbor to care for her daughter Dipa. So she was an amazing meditator. The first day at the center, she got so deep into samadhi, like she went into stillness, probably into jhanas, on her very first day of being taught meditation. And apparently a dog bit her leg and she didn't even feel it. Anyway, due to the bite, she needed daily rabies shots, which made her miss the daily meal. and she became so weak they had to send her home to recuperate. So so she thought she'd missed her only opportunity for awakening. So when she came back, her daughter, just clung to her. She was pretty distressed at her mother leaving her. So she continued to raise her daughter after that point in time. But she continued with a daily meditation practice. Then several years later, she learned that a family friend, Anagarika Munindra, I've got him somewhere. There he is. This is Munindra. She heard that, so he was a family friend and a Buddhist teacher, and she heard that he was living nearby at a meditation center. And he also was a student of Mahasi Sayadaw. Since Dipa Ma's sister had moved to Burma, she was able to look after Dipa and allow Dipa Ma to attend a 6-month retreat with Anagarika Munindra. And after only 6 days, she experienced the first level of awakening. So she must have had some past life experiences with meditation to be able to progress so amazingly rapidly. And then what was so interesting is that, she was extremely sickly, but after this experience, her blood pressure returned to normal, her heart palpitations decreased, and this deep grief that she had been in from all the losses, her mother, the children, her children that had died, her husband, all of that just disappeared. The grief and any fear she had just disappeared, and she felt very equanimous. So after that 6-month meditation, she returned home, but made frequent trips to the meditation center over the following years. On her second stay at the monastery, after only 5 days, she actually experienced the second level of awakening. So that's pretty remarkable. Amazingly remarkable. And her physical stamina improved. They said that her neighbors were just pretty amazed that overnight she seemed transformed from this sickly, dependent, grief-stricken woman into a healthy, independent, radiant being. Dipa Ma's sister Hema, along with 4 of Hema's daughters and 2 sons, they attended the meditation center over the next year, and it was said that all of Hema's children experienced at least the first level of awakening, whereas Hema experienced first and second level, like the same as her sister. So a remarkable family. In 1965, when Dipa Ma was 54, Anagarika Munindra intended to return to India. His teacher, Mahasi Sayadaw, had wanted to train him in the siddhis, which are the psychic powers, as India was known as the land of the siddhis. But he was too busy teaching to take on this training. But he passed on the training using the Visuddhimagga, which is a sort of a commentary book on the Pali Canon. He trained Dipa Ma and her sister Hema and 3 of the daughters in these various psychic things. Dematerialization, this is so allows you to walk through walls. Body doubling, so I guess she used to use this a lot if she was walking home late at night in India, or which is quite dangerous for a woman alone. You double or triple or quadruple yourself, and so it looks like there's a little group of you, so it makes it look safer. Cooking food without fire, just generating heat from your hands. mind reading.
That'd come in handy for camping.
Pardon me?
Would come in handy for camping.
That's right. Visitation of the different heaven and hell realms, time travel. One of the, this is, I mean, I've never had any psychic powers, and I've never experienced anybody demonstrating psychic powers, so this all seems pretty fantastical, but so I'm just reporting to you. So one story I heard about her, time travel is she and her sister were on a bus going somewhere, and I guess the bus was going to be late or something, and they had some kind of an appointment, and she was able to shift the time and arrive on time. I don't know how you do that, but anyway. And then knowledge of past lives. And apparently Dipa Ma was extremely adept at all of these. Munindra said, like her teacher, Anagarika Munindra said she would arrive at interviews by walking through the wall or just spontaneously materializing. She never portrayed these psychic powers to anybody else, just her teachers, so they weren't observed by anybody else except Munindra. And she stopped practicing them when he left for India, as she felt that they involved the ego and were going to be a barrier to awakening. So once he left, she stopped practicing them. After he left, that was in 1966, then people started seeking out Dipa Ma as a teacher. And her teaching was to always keep people in your heart, to give of your love to the people and the earth and the world around. She was very demanding of her students. She expected the best from people and had the ability to evoke the best from people. She suggested one sleep for only 4 hours a night, which gives one lots of time to practice meditation, even if you have a very busy life. She radiated love to all who came to see her, regardless of their state. Her first student in Burma was Malati, a widow and a single mother who was caring for 6 young children. So Dipa Ma, devised practices for Malati, which Malati could do without leaving her children, or such as bringing complete presence of mind to the sensation of her infant nursing at her breast. And just as Dipa Ma had hoped, by practicing mindfulness when she nursed the baby, Malati actually attained the first level of awakening. In 1967, when Dipa Ma was 56, all foreigners were ordered to leave Burma. So she moved to Calcutta, stayed with a relative for a year, but she really missed being with other meditators, and as the neighbors there were not, where her sister lived, they weren't interested in meditation. So a year later, she moved to her own one-room apartment on the 4th floor above a metal grinding shop. So if you can imagine a worse place to meditate, but that was the condition that she had, this grinding of metal all day long. And then in this one-room apartment, her daughter Dipa, I guess her marriage had ended and she had a young son, so she moved in with her mom. So there was 3 of them living in this one-room apartment above this metal grinding shop in Calcutta. They had no running water, and there was just a communal bathroom for several of the tenants. So the apartment complex was apparently very noisy, people yelling and arguing. But apparently she dealt with her neighbors with kindness, calmness, some limit setting, and challenging them when necessary. And apparently within 6 months, the apartment complex was quieter and tenants were getting along better due to her serene presence. And slowly she started to get meditation students, mostly busy housewives. So none of us are going to have any kind of an excuse why we can't meditate when you think about the people that she was teaching. Very stressed people. So she taught them to be mindful every moment, whatever they were doing. And she even had monks coming to her for training. So she ended up with a steady stream of students all day long. In Calcutta, Dipa Ma addressed similar situations again and again. For example, I don't know how to say this, Sudipti was a woman who was struggling to run a business while caring for a mentally ill son and an invalid mother. So Dipa Ma instructed her in Vipassana practice, but Sudipti insisted that she couldn't find time for meditation because she had so many family and business responsibilities. But Dipa Ma told her that when she found herself thinking about family or business, she could simply think about them mindfully. She said, human beings will never solve all their problems. The only way is to bring mindfulness to whatever you are suffering. And if you can only manage 5 minutes of meditation a day, you should do that. At their first meeting, Dipa Ma asked Sudipti if she could meditate right then and there for 5 minutes. So she sat with her for 5 minutes, and somehow Sudipti said she found 5 minutes a day and followed the instructions. And from this 5 minutes, she became so inspired that she was able to find longer and longer times to meditate, and soon was meditating many hours a day into the night, sometimes all night after her work was done. She said, I found energy and time I didn't know I had. Another Indian student, Deepak, remembers Dipa Ma teasing him. Oh, you're coming from the office. Your mind must be very busy. But then she would fiercely command him to change his mind. He said to her that working in a bank, there was a lot of calculating and that his mind was always restless. It was impossible to practice. He was too busy. But Dipa Ma was firm, insisting that if you are busy, then busyness is your meditation. And when you do calculations, know that you are doing calculations. Meditation is always possible at any time. If you are rushing to the office, then you should be mindful of rushing. For Dipa Ma, there was simply the practice of being present, being fully awake all the time in every situation. And she was a living demonstration that the real nature of mind is presence. Everything was Dhamma. She urged her students to make every moment count and emphasize bringing mindfulness to cooking, ironing, talking, or any other daily activity. She often said that the whole path of mindfulness is simply awareness of whatever you are doing. Always know what you are doing, she would say. You cannot separate meditation from life. Lay practitioners often feel torn between spiritual practice and the requirements of family, work, and social life. We know that our recurrent dilemmas cannot be resolved by separating parts of our lives and weighing one against the other. Yet we become easily lost in that moment of dilemma. Perhaps the image of Dipa Ma can reside in our hearts as a reminder that we do not have to choose. Each dilemma can be accepted as a gift, challenging us to find again and again, and yet again, the middle way in which nothing is outside of our compassion. And perhaps the very process of opening to such challenges will produce a form of family practice that reflects how the Dharma can be lived in our particular time and place. One student called Dipa Ma the patron saint of householders. Mm-hmm. Joseph Goldstein was her first U.S. student. There's a picture of Goldstein. Look at how tiny she is. So he was a student of Anagarika Munindra, who introduced him to Dipa Ma. And then Joseph introduced Sharon Salzberg. I don't know if you're familiar with these names, but these are sort of the lay teachers who, really brought a lot of Buddhism to sort of the east coast of the United States. They set up the IMS Center there. There's a picture of, here's Sharon Salzberg. There's Dipa Ma. This looks like Dipa's daughter, but I'm not sure. But this is for sure Sharon Salzberg. It said that the two of them became like her children. And they said that she was the most loving person that they had ever met. She really didn't sort of project any kind of an ego, and they said all that she projected was peace and love. She brought forth the best efforts in others by inspiration. Jack Kornfield and Sylvia Boorstein also studied with her. Here's Jack Kornfield. Kornfield described Dipa Ma as quiet peace surrounded by love. In 1980, they invited her to teach in the U.S. She was 69 years old at the time. She came with her daughter and the daughter's son. She was the first female Theravada teacher to come to the U.S. and certainly demonstrated that that women and householders could have deep spiritual attainments. She came a second time in 1984, but her health didn't allow her to make any more trips after that time. She died 5 years later at the age of 78. There was a book written by a Harvard psychologist called Transformations of Consciousness. The psychologist's name was Jack Engler. And he reports in that book a study of Dipa Ma and other advanced meditators. He took their histories and gave them an extensive battery of tests, including the Rorschach and the thematic apperception tests, which measure personality and perception. Dipa Ma's test protocols confirmed that she had cultivated a luminous, loving mind, peaceful and completely untroubled with anger, fear, greed, or conflict of any kind. She was totally open about her inner life. Engler reports, the tests show a cognitive emotional transformation and integration that reflected the deepest levels of inner liberation. All the other meditation masters he studied did have spiritual realizations, but still retained some neurotic aspects of their personality. The only one who did not was Dipa Ma. She was completely transformed. In her, he found a degree of mental health and well-being that was the most remarkable ever seen by a scientist. Sure wish I could have met this teacher. So I'll just end with a few teaching tidbits that Dipa Ma left behind. If you practice for a result, then it becomes a hindrance. Motivation for practice can come from the wonder of each moment. Balance effort with ease, gentleness, and compassionate acceptance. So what that's talking about is don't have a desire, or just be with your practice and be accepting how it is at the moment. Embrace whatever comes along with awareness and make all circumstances your teacher.
Yeah, makes sense.
Patience is one of the most important virtues for developing mindfulness and stillness. All our thoughts are stories that create a sense of self. Dipa Ma lived in a state of thought-free awareness. There were only 3 things in her mind: samadhi, which is stillness, metta, and peace. Can you imagine that, going through the day without thoughts in your mind? Meditation leads to happiness. There is so much sameness in ordinary life. Once greed, hatred, and delusion are gone, you see everything fresh and new all the time. Every moment is new. Life was dull before. Now every day, every moment is full of taste and zest. These are, her with her husband, with her daughter, with Sharon Salzberg, Jack Cornfield, Joseph Goldstein, Munindra. That's it. Okay, so I'd shown them all to you. Okay. I'll just pause here.